here this morning at the Tustin Area Historical Society Museum, and we have the great pleasure to be interviewing Greg Kelly, a member of the Kelly family that has meant so much to Old Town Tustin, having so many businesses right here on El Camino Real. Greg, we're really happy to have you.
Thank you, Ivan.
We understand you're visiting from Minneapolis, and we're just pleased that you've taken the time to come in here to see us.
Yes, it's really an honor being here to share the day with you and reminisce about Tustin
The old days.
and what everything that went on here in Tustin.
Tell us when your family first moved here, Greg.
We came here in 1963 when there was more orange trees than people back in those days. So it's changed an awful lot now. Now there's way more people.
We happen to have here an aerial map with exactly that date on it, and it does show almost all orange trees instead of cities. Your family was unusually large. How many siblings did you have, Greg?
I have 11 other brothers and sisters, 7 sisters, and 5 brothers.
Wow.
Oh, 5 of us.
Good sized family.
12, an even dozen, as my mother would say.
And when they moved here, you were how old?
I was 11.
11.
Moving here to Tustin.
Tell us a little bit what it was like to be 11 years old and where you went to school and things like that.
Well, it was moving from Long Beach to here. It was moving out to the country, and so it was very rural. And we loved to play out in the orange groves, and just to smell the orange blossoms. It was really special to just be a part of that time and seeing the smudge pots in action and working, and seeing how the agriculture was so big at that time in this area. And then one by one, the orange groves were taken away, developed into housing tracts, shopping centers, and that's progress, and that's Orange County, and that's what all happened here.
Now, when you moved here, the Marine base was active, right?
Right. Yeah, I started out there at the Marine base when I was about 12 years old, delivering newspapers, the Orange County Register.
The Orange County Register.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
great.
And that's when the Tustin News had its own independent paper, of course, right here in Tustin. But the OC Register was the big paper then, and so I would deliver the paper into the barracks, and into the O Club, into the EM Club, and the mess hall. That was the most fun.
That's great.
In the mess hall, just seeing those Marines, and I was close in age to them, so many of them were only like 18, 19 years old themselves.
But
So
you were just 12, right?
I was only 12, so they were like my older brothers.
Now, did they have to have a subscription to the paper, or was the Register being friendly to the
Well, I'd have
military?
extra papers left over every day, and then I would sell them outside of the mess hall.
Oh.
Then they would give us a tip, so a quarter was the pay. So the list price on the paper was a dime.
A dime.
So then they would give us a tip of 15 cents. They give us a quarter.
Wow.
So that was
Big money for a 12-year-old
that
in
was good
1963.
back then. Yeah. And to see the Marines in their starched uniforms, and we had so much fun with them. And this was right during the, right during the peak of Vietnam, and I just remember vividly one day, everything got really serious. I looked out the window there at one of the barracks, and there are all these Marines. They're all lined up in all their uniforms and gear, and it got really serious. They're going over to Vietnam. It wasn't Disneyland. They were going to Vietnam.
Serious times.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever get to go inside the hangars?
Oh, yeah. But not too much. They wouldn't let kids run around in there.
But they're pretty awesome for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, just the size of
They're
them.
pretty big for an adult.
Yeah, they they had another club, the Sergeant's Club, I think, was real close to the hangars. And, but it seemed like the sergeants, they had their own barracks too, but they didn't like us kids. For some reason, I don't know. They did not like us hanging around, coming near their space, their barracks. But the enlisted men, because they were so young and everything, they were fun. And sometimes they would walk in there and they would pretend like to ambush us. You know, like they had guns, and they would pretend like they ambushed us. And so it was just kind of funny, fun times.
That's great. I'm sure 1963 was a time that downtown Tustin was quite small compared to today. Right,
and Tustin had starting to have the, I guess, Tustin Tiller Days, and an event right there at El Camino Real in Maine. Like a big dance right in the middle of the street at night. I remember that.
That's great.
So we were just mischievous kids and just, roaming around all over the place.
Sure. Now, Tiller Days has been a big event for a long time, still is.
Yeah, back when, maybe 15 years ago, 20, I sponsored a model car contest there at Tustin Tiller Days for about 3 years. Held right there at Columbus Tustin Park. And that was a lot of fun. A lot of people had a great time. They would bring their car models over there and try to win a prize. So that was back about 15 years ago. When
That's
I had
great.
that.
Now, back in '63, the 5 freeway was in existence, but the 55 was under construction, right?
Yeah, when 55 freeway, well, it was a road, Newport Road, then intersected, and it was a stop sign right there that you would just go across the street before any of the freeway.
Things have changed.
Big time, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your education in the early years, where you went to schools.
Yeah, well, we started out in Long Beach, there in a subdivision, big, huge subdivision. That's why this was so different moving here to Tustin.
Where'd you start school here when you moved here?
So I started at Columbus Tustin Intermediate School, and they were great teachers there at Columbus Tustin. And many of them I kept in contact with and years later, and after I started my hobby shop. And so I would have model classes, and I got to know many of the teachers even later as they were starting to retire. So,
And you went to Tustin High for a short while?
yeah, I was there at Tustin High for 6 months, and that was really fun going there, because I knew a lot of the kids there already from living here in Tustin. And so then I transferred back. My mother had a devastating brain hemorrhage, so we all had to help her out. So I had to transfer to Tustin High for 6 months, and then I transferred back to Modern Day for my senior year.
Now, after you graduated from high school, did you immediately start your hobby shop, or was there some?
I worked in factories for about 2 years, and I found that to be probably my best education I ever had, because I was working, on the other side of the tracks, if you will, getting to see another side of life and everything, and seeing what that was all about. And I was always very appreciative to have a job back then. I thought, if I don't like the job, I'll just go somewhere else and find another job. And so I was always appreciative of that, to even have any job. And it wasn't much pay, but it was a job. And I learned a lot, and back at that time, I was always going to schools where there was no shop classes, and everybody was going to be a lawyer or a doctor. And so working in the factories was the first time I worked with my hands, and I enjoyed it so much that I started my hobby shop. Just 2 years later, I was only 20 years old, and I didn't know anything about models at all, nothing. And so I learned there just from customers coming in the door. And because Tustin didn't have a hobby shop at that time. And so I thought, well, this will be a perfect business to start,
That's great.
even though I didn't know anything about it at all.
Now, had your other siblings started their businesses before you, or was it
They
kind of all
came a
together?
little later.
A little later. Eventually, you had 4 enterprises across the street from our museum, right? A gift
Right.
shop, hobby shop, a men's store, and a beauty salon.
And
Is
then
that-
the hair salon, yeah.
hair salon, which is still there. and
Right.
Operating.
Yeah.
I just had my hair cut there last Saturday.
Oh, great. Joe?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a great barber.
Orozco. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the greatest hair salon. Real ease back
Cozy.
and real cozy there, fireplace. So in the winter, you can have a nice fire going.
And John Kelly still has his enterprise, your brother, and he has cigar outings every now and then that I've attended.
Yeah, out of the cigars, but he still does the tuxedos. So he's still busy.
During
with
sip
all-
and stroll, though, I think people gather over there to have a cigar smoke during the sip and stroll.
Yeah,
Now, you had the hobby shop for how many years?
43.
43 years.
Yeah,
And you made a lot of things yourself, one of which we're looking at here, which is a model of an A&W root beer stand. And this is a model of something that existed in Old Tustin, right?
yes, the A&W stand was located right there, Newport Avenue and Irvine Boulevard, for many years.
About where there's a donut shop across from Trader Joe's over in that area.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, and A&W was great, you know, they had those big giant glass mugs that you could take out and take home with you.
That's such a great customized model. Must have taken an awful lot of work. You got all the colors right and the shapes and everything.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
yeah, so much information is available on the internet, so I just looked at pictures of it.
It's great.
You know, and there's one model I always wanted to do, I still haven't done it, I still hopefully can do it, is located right here on, which was D at this time, right here was the Foster's Freeze. And then the Tustin Police Department took over in there. But that was Foster's Freeze ice cream right there
Mm.
on El Camino Real. Now it's that big giant, big building there now, but
Things have a way of changing, don't they?
yeah.
Well, you built another customized model that you donated to our museum, and I'm sure that our master video editor will put in a picture of the blimp hanger, but you personally built a replica of the blimp hanger from the Tustin Marine Base, and when you moved, you donated it to us, and I'm sure we'll get a picture of that edited in. It's just a fantastic reproduction. Tell us a little bit about how long it took to do that.
Yeah, I usually spend about 4 months on a project. Sometimes I'll go a little overtime. But yeah, 4 months is a long time on a project. And usually I'll go visit the project if I can, if it's still in existence, and do, get the information, you know, the dimensions of it.
Did you have any architectural drawings to go by, or
I would just draw sketches,
sketches?
just rough sketches to work from.
It is really realistic.
And I did about, I don't know, 20 or so of the trusses in there. And there's actually, I think it's a lot more than that, but I thought this is enough, you know. So those, that was an ordeal, just to get the angle correct on that, to get it situated so it was all correctly done. That was the hardest part, was getting that all situated.
Being a docent here in the museum, I always make sure that I point that out to people. And the hangars are still a very prominent part of the Tustin landscape. Everybody's interested in them, and they sure love to see your model. Now, tell us how you built the blimps.
The blimps are coated with, cheesecloth, that's what it
Cheesecloth.
is. Yeah, to give it kind of that rough textured look.
What's under the cheesecloth? Balsa?
Balsa, yeah, balsa. So they took a while to make, get them all.
Sure.
And I spoke with one of the pilots. He retired up in like Azusa or something, and he said that he would patrol the coast looking for Japanese submarines. They never found any.
That was the whole point of building them, but I think it was partly an overestimation of Japan's submarine power. They didn't have as much as we thought.
Yeah,
But
there was a few that got in.
it was being overly cautious, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah,
But we just love to show it, and we're so happy that you donated it to the museum.
yeah.
And I keep looking up at it because it's right above your head there, but we will get some pictures of that edited into our interview. And we really thank you for donating that to us.
Yeah.
Now, the Kelly family had such a big impact with your enterprises over there, but you say you had 12 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
The others were involved in something other than those enterprises, right? Did they hang around Tustin or move on?
They went off and,
Various places?
yeah, couple became nurses, worked in the banks here. They just weren't interested in getting involved in the business.
Being an entrepreneur.
No, that takes a different type animal, if you will,
Yeah.
to do that, as
Well,
I found out. Yeah.
The Kelly family was so important to early downtown Tustin with your 4 enterprises there.
Yeah. I wanted to add that my mother and father, they both were instrumental in starting the wishing well over here at the City Hall complex. And they also were, when they were involved with the wishing well project, then after that was all completed, the incorporation papers from that were deeded over here to the museum.
Mm.
And that was how the museum got its founding, was from that incorporation papers from the wishing well,
Great.
way back in 1976.
Mm.
And I think they called it the Frontier. I think they had a name. Each thing had a name for it, like the wishing well, and then there was the Frontier, and they all had a name. And then the museum took over all those the paperwork from the incorporation.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I haven't seen that really documented or written down, but that's where the paperwork came from. Was from the wishing well. And of course, that was my mother's brainchild, the wishing well. And she would go around, soliciting any money at all. She even had little mini wishing wells made up, and then people would put their coins in there. And the city put up half of the money, and then the donations put up the other half. So I think it was a total of about $10,000
Wow.
for the whole initial project. And then a Santa Ana wind knocked down the well, the top, 30-some years ago, and then it was rebuilt. It was just wooden, and the wood rotted from the water from the well hitting the sides. And then the city then put up, there's metal beams in there now.
Mm.
That's built strength. And we were just there the other day, and it doesn't look like any water's flowing. I just saw a lot of cigarette butts in there.
Well, maybe we can edit in a picture of that, Steve. That's a great little piece of history that I knew nothing about, so thank
The
you for that.
world's largest ashtray.
There we go. Maybe we'll put a caption on that.
Now, did your father serve in World War II?
He came in right after it was over. So then he went over on a Liberty ship over the Philippines, and then went over to there, and then went over to occupied Japan. So he was in just right after, you know, it was over, you know, 45 or 6, something like
I've seen his picture on the wall over at John's store.
that. Yeah, well, we don't have pictures. You could have seen pictures of my grandfather. He was in the Navy.
Might have been your grandfather.
Yeah, he was on the York, CV-5 Yorktown
I think it was your grandfather's
at the
picture.
Battle
I
of
saw.
Midway, yeah. And he was just a simple Irish immigrant that came here to the States when he was about 16 or 17 years old. He came out to Tustin, but we didn't have the shops yet. He passed away before we got that going.
That made your brother John eligible for Sons of the American Legion. That's why I happen to know John.
Oh, really?
We recruited him into the American Legion.
Ah,
So,
if you have an
So it's-
ancestry.
yes,
It was in-
served. You're eligible for
Oh.
what's called Sons of the American Legion.
Ah,
So
yeah.
that's how I know John. And I think that I did recall now was your grandfather's picture on the wall
Yeah,
in a Navy uniform. So,
yeah. Yeah, my dad was Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps.
Yeah, he always wanted to fly, but they didn't need pilots anymore
Not after it
after
was
the
over.
war, yeah, it was over.
So he was part of the occupation.
Yeah,
Up to then.
yeah.
Well, this has just been a fascinating trip back in time.
Yeah,
And
and,
43 years in the hobby shop.
yeah,
That's
I'm always curious. I taught model classes for many years, and they used to have them through the schools, in summer school, model classes for kids. And then Proposition 13 came around, and they ended all that. So I thought, oh my God, I'm going to become a teacher now. I did. I started teaching model classes to kids. And I'm always curious to find out what happened, you know, if any of them became engineers or whatever they did. And some of them I know a little bit about, and they're very thankful that,
model building when you're young can lead to a lot of different kinds of things.
yeah, I read a lot of the stories about, like Neil Armstrong, and he was just honored, you know, with the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and he was from there in Wapakoneta, Ohio, and a little town, and they'd have a party at his house, and they'd say, "Where's Neil at?" And he'd be in his back room building his model,
Yeah.
because he was just, that was him. He had-
Amazing.
Yeah, and then, of course, he was the one who got to be the first on the moon.
Yeah. And I think you told me that you had some teenagers come into your hobby shop and build stuff. People could sit there and watch them building them.
Right, I called them model technologists, and so for them, it was like a scholarship. And they were able to build their model right there when people would walk in the door. And it was a good accomplishment for them, and then back in those days, we'd have little gas engines, so they put the little gas motor on it, and then we'd fly it in the parking lot next door. And so it was a good little thing for them to achieve. And then they could do that, take it to school, and show and tell
That's great.
at their regular school.
Fantastic way to promote your hobby shop. People
Yeah.
watching them build them think, I can do that.
Yeah.
So they give it.
I went over quite a few years too to the troop over here at Red Hill Lutheran on Red Hill, and their scout troop was real big in the campouts, and they would take their rockets with them. And they would tell the kids, if you behave yourselves, you get to launch your rocket. And it was educational. I was never in the scouts. And just to see how they behaved at the meetings was educational for me. I thought, wow. And I would recommend that for any parent today. I did. I go, get your kids into scouting. That's the best thing.
Yeah, very
They
good.
learn discipline. They learn how to pay attention. You know, they learn how to put their fingers up at attention, and it teaches them an awful lot about respect. And then when they go to regular school, they excel there. So they learn to pay attention to the teacher, and
And they become patriotic,
they're very patriotic. Yeah, for America, and
respect for the flag.
yeah, and this way builds great Americans. And scouting I promote, and
It's a very great thing, and of course, they have it for girls too,
yeah,
Girl Scouts.
we never taught the girls model building.
It's a boy thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, working with your
Yeah.
hands and building stuff. I built models when I was young out of balsa wood and paper, but it seems like there was a movement towards simpler plastic stuff that you just glued together. I like the old balsa wood and
Yeah,
putting the paper over it.
yeah. There's still interest in both types, the balsa and paper, and then of course plastic. But you
There's
know,
still a little challenge to plastic, but it's not as challenging
Yeah.
as balsa wood and paper.
yeah, because you're trying to get your balsa airplane to fly. You know, plastic, you're going for aesthetics, looks of it. You know, painting it.
Yeah.
You want it to look good, but your balsa wood, you want to get it to fly. You know. So
Well, what a contribution you've made to Tustin Society. 43
Thank you.
years of helping kids get started with model building, and it's just a tremendous contribution from your entire family, for which we are all today very grateful.
yeah.
And we've really enjoyed this chance to
Yeah, I wish I could
chat with you.
open up a hobby shop in Minneapolis, but my health just can't, wouldn't be able to do that.
I understand that you've had some, back in Minneapolis, some press about what you do, your model building. Have I seen something you were on, they
Yeah.
talked about you on the news?
Yeah, I've already, now there's more time to build stuff. So I built a model of the Saturn V out of toothpicks. I just had that out at the Minneapolis State Fair. And then also I did a model of the stadium where the Vikings play football. And the Vikings really liked it. And they even made a plexiglass showcase for it
Wow.
and put it on display at two of the games there.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's a big deal.
yeah, they did, and they're real nice to Dana and I, my wife Dana and I, and they gave us tickets to the game. And one game we got sick, we couldn't go, so it was too bad. But then I had the TV crew come out from the local Fox affiliate, and that's all on the internet. Anybody that wants to see that interview.
I'm sure our masterful editor will get a link to that. Steve, we can do that?
We can do that.
So
Yeah.
we'll have people link to that. That's
And
great.
So it's a different type of they like to work on wood a lot, because there's a lot of wood there. So they do wood a lot of people like to work with wood, and not as much plastic.
And there's a lot of lakes there.
A lot of
I
lakes,
just discovered over 10,000.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
maybe model boat building is popular.
yeah, people do any time, you know, in the spring, you know, when the water is out there, and they can run their boats, then they can do that. But I mostly just stay inside and work on my models, you know.
How often do you make it back to Tustin?
We were here just here in February, so I'd say once a year, come back.
You have siblings here to visit, right?
Yeah, I still got a lot of family, so we get together and
I'm sure.
and all that.
family reunions.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah,
Good old Irish family reunion.
yeah. Mm. Mm. I have one brother, my oldest brother. He, very talented artist, but he just never got into the art. He just, is in real estate and things. But he lives in Ireland of all places. He lives over there. He comes over here maybe if he can, every couple of years or so. But and he's been there to visit us in Minneapolis.
Hmm.
So he gets around, but he enjoys Ireland. I don't know why, but he does. I've been there many times. It's just too primitive.
It's very green, though,
It is. Yeah, they do.
meaning they get a lot of rain.
Yeah. And moss growing on the roofs. Yeah, I don't like that either.
And a lot of sheep.
Yeah. Although they have nice woolen jackets, sweaters.
And some beautiful scenery on the coasts,
Yeah.
like the cliffs of Maher and places like that. Nice place
So
to visit.
I heard that Pete was saying the museum's gonna expand or you're gonna redo it.
Yes.
Things. I hope,
Do some remodeling in here.
so I hope you redo things and get it all expanded even more.
We're going to do our best, and I'll personally try to lobby for the blimp hanger to be displayed in some fashion.
I've been to a few museums, not too many, but I remember being in one in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that was an experience, just going in their museum. And they had old pictures all around the walls of their, ancient ancestors, from like Brigham Young back.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see what they've done, utilizing, any space with pictures and I think it was a different type. I mean, I was there, say 30 some years ago. They're just so trusting there too, unlike other places and stuff. They're very trusting. I went into the I forget what they called it. It wasn't the Temple Square building, but a big number, I think, to go in there. But the other building where they do the choirs, I was sitting in the back. They let anybody go in there, and there was a purse sitting over there, on the pew, way over on the side. I thought, what's with this? It's nobody's there. It's just sitting there. Anybody could walk up and take that. And I just curious after the service was over, and I waited, and here's this trusting young girl. She just walks all the way to the back and picks it up. She just left it there. She was so trusting.
Wouldn't do that today.
Today, world?
Not in today's world.
Huh?
Not today's world.
Not in today's world.
You're gonna get panhandled going in and panhandled out.
Things have changed.
Yeah,
Well, we've really enjoyed talking about the what I'd call the good old days,
yeah.
and it's been enlightening about some things that we didn't know about.
Yeah,
And,
Dana, she puts up with everything.
and we're happy to
She
have
likes it.
Dana here.
I'm very proud of my Tustin man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, you should be. Once again, Greg, this has been a real pleasure. Enjoyed it very
Yeah,
much.
Ivan, thank you very much. Yeah, it was real
Thanks for
fun.
bringing your wife, Dana, and she got to hear all this too, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much, and.
Tonight, breaking news. Sources tell ABC News